My son cut me off for 13 years until he learned I was a new millionaire. He showed up at my door with bags and his wife. As your son, I'm entitled to some of this. We're moving in. You have all this extra space anyway." I smiled and did what I should have done a long time ago. The audacity hit me like a freight train. Tyler stood on my front step with designer luggage and that same cocky smirk I remembered all too well. "As your son, I'm entitled to some of this," he announced, gesturing toward my house like it was already in probate with his name on it. "We're moving in. You have all this extra space anyway." 13 years of silence, and that, this ridiculous demand, was his grand reunion speech. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me what city you're watching from. I suppose I should explain how we got here, how my own son could stand at my door after over a decade of treating me like I was already gone, demanding a slice of the fortune he'd just heard about. But first, let me tell you what happened next, because some moments deserve to be savored. I smiled at Tyler and his wife, Madison, who hung back a half step like she expected me to start throwing things. Smart woman. "Well," I said, my voice steady as granite, "isn't this interesting?" His confidence faltered by a hair. He hadn't come for calm. He'd come for the desperate, grateful mother he'd abandoned all those years ago. "Mom, we've been thinking," he began, but I raised my hand. "Tyler, darling," I said, in the exact same tone I used the day he was 5 and colored the living room wall with permanent marker. "Before you say another word, here's something you should know about your mother." I paused, letting the quiet stretch until I could read his face. I've learned a lot about people in 13 years, especially about family who only show up when there's money on the table. Madison finally stepped forward, her smile as glossy as her knockoff handbag. "Evelyn, we know there's been some distance, but family is family, right? We want to rebuild our relationship." "Rebuild?" I laughed, and it felt good, clean, almost. "Honey, you can't rebuild something you personally bulldozed." I looked at the two of them, 2 vultures circling what they assumed was easy prey. "But by all means, come in," I said, opening the door with a gracious sweep. "Let's talk about relationships. Let's talk about entitlement. Let's talk about exactly what you think you deserve from me." They wheeled their suitcases past me into the foyer, tires whispering over the tile. I caught Tyler's reflection in the hallway mirror. For just a flicker, he looked uncertain. Good, because what he was about to learn would rattle that arrogance right out of him. The real question wasn't whether I'd let them stay. The real question was whether they'd want to stay, once they understood exactly who they were dealing with. "This place is smaller than I expected," Madison announced, eyes sweeping the crown molding like she was calculating square footage and resale in her head. She had that look some people get when they're mentally redecorating someone else's home. Tyler was doing the same, appraising, inventorying. He had the air of a man planning the estate sale, while the owner is still very much alive. If they thought they were dealing with the same broken woman who once begged for scraps of attention, they were in for a surprise that would curl their perfectly styled hair. I led them into the living room, the very room where Tyler had delivered his parting shot all those years ago. "Sit," I said, motioning to the sofa. "Let's catch up." The irony wasn't lost on me that this was probably the first time in his adult life he was following my instructions. "We heard about your good fortune," Madison began, clearly the designated spokesperson for this expedition. "Tyler's been worried about you, haven't you, honey?" Tyler nodded like a man who'd rehearsed that nod in the mirror. "I have, Mom. When I heard about the lottery, I thought, you shouldn't be dealing with all that money alone. It's dangerous. People might try to take advantage. I almost choked on my coffee. Take advantage, I repeated, tasting the words. You mean like showing up uninvited after 13 years and demanding a place to live and access to money you had no hand in earning? That's not what this is, Tyler said quickly, eyes avoiding mine. This is about family responsibility, about making sure you're protected. Protected, I set my cup down carefully. Tyler, the last time we spoke, you told me I was an embarrassment to your new life. You said successful people don't drag their baggage around, and I was your baggage. Those were your exact words. The color drained from his face. Madison's smile flickered like a dying bulb. That was different, he muttered. I was young, stressed about the business. You were 32, I said, not unkindly but firmly. Old enough to know that words have consequences. Old enough to understand some doors, once shut, don't magically reopen just because your circumstances change. Madison jumped in, her voice honey-sweet, but calculation peeking through. Evelyn, we all say things we regret under pressure. What matters is we're here now, ready to be a family again. Ready to be a family. That was rich, coming from the woman who'd helped orchestrate my exile. I studied them, my son and the wife who encouraged him to vanish, and felt something I hadn't felt in years, complete control. They needed something, which meant, for the first time in our relationship, I held all the cards. Tell me, I said, leaning back, exactly how much of my good fortune do you think you're entitled to? They exchanged that look married couples share when they're about to tag team someone. I'd seen it before, back when they were systematically cutting me out. The difference was this time I recognized it for what it was, a strategy session held in plain sight. It's not about entitlement, Tyler said, reaching for sincerity and landing somewhere near pitiable. It's about family obligation, about making sure this money doesn't change you or make you vulnerable to the wrong people. The wrong people, I echoed. You mean people like my own son and daughter-in-law who evaporated the moment they decided I wasn't useful? Madison's mask slipped, just a hair, revealing sharp edges underneath. Evelyn, we understand you're hurt, but we're talking about your future, your security. This money could last the rest of your life if it's managed properly. Managed properly, I said. By whom? You too? The same people who couldn't manage to send a birthday card for over a decade? Tyler shifted. We've been busy building our lives, our careers. We had to focus on our priorities. And now I'm a priority again. How convenient. I stood and walked to the window, looking out over my garden. Tell me about these lives you've been building. I'm curious how that's worked out. Silence stretched long enough to tell me plenty. When I turned, Tyler was studying his hands like they held the meaning of life. We've had setbacks, Madison admitted, voice tight. The market's been challenging. Tyler's consulting business has been slower than expected. Setbacks, I nodded. Is that what we're calling it? Because what I heard, from mutual acquaintances, yes, I still have friends in this town, was more specific. Your setbacks involve maxed out credit cards, a second mortgage, and a business that mostly exists on paper. Tyler's head snapped up. How do you know things? I finished. You cut me out of your life, son, not out of the community. People talk. They've been talking for years. I sat, enjoying how they seemed to shrink into the cushions. They told me about the failed partnerships, the bad investments, and the lifestyle you couldn't actually afford. They also told me something interesting about why you really shut the door on me 13 years ago. Madison's face went pale. What do you mean? I mean the real reason you both decided I was an embarrassment. It wasn't about success or image or any of that convenient nonsense. I smiled, my first genuine smile in a while. It was about the inheritance you thought was coming from your father's wealthy uncle, the one who made it very clear he didn't approve of people who couldn't take care of their own mothers. The look on Tyler's face said it all. Bingo. You threw me away because you thought Uncle Richard would leave you his money if you proved you were independent, successful, unencumbered by family obligations. I leaned forward. How'd that work out? His face cycled through shades of red before settling into a sickly gray. Madison tried to hold her composure, but I could see the recalculations whirring behind her eyes. Uncle Richard left his money to the animal shelter, Tyler whispered. Every penny? I asked lightly, not bothering to hide my satisfaction. Turns out he had strong opinions about people who abandon elderly parents for money. Who would have thought? That's ancient history, Madison said quickly. What matters now is the future. Family supporting each other through difficult times. Family supporting each other, I repeated, rolling the phrase like a wine tasting. Fascinating. Coming from you. Remind me, when exactly did you start considering me family? Because I distinctly recall you referring to me as Tyler's burden at your housewarming party. She flinched. You weren't supposed to hear that. But I did, I said, along with several other gems about how much better your life would be once you handled the mother situation. I moved to the mantel and lifted an old photo, Tyler at college graduation, his arm around me, both of us smiling like the future was wide open. I spent 13 years wondering what I did wrong, 13 years thinking I'd failed as a mother. I set the frame down. But I didn't fail, did I? I raised a son who was kind and thoughtful. The failure came later, after he met you. That's not fair, Tyler said weakly. Fair? I turned to them. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been a conversation before you cut off contact. Fair would have been honesty about your motivations. Fair would have meant treating me like a human being instead of a liability to be managed. We made mistakes, Madison said, desperation fraying the edges of her voice. But we're here now. We want to make things right. Make things right, I echoed. With my money. It's not about the money, Tyler insisted, but there was no backbone in it. Really, let's test that. I reached into my purse and pulled out my checkbook. Let's say I write you a check right now for $50,000, a generous gift to help with those setbacks. Would you take it and leave? Their eyes lit up like Christmas morning. The answer was on their faces before Tyler's mouth even moved. We couldn't accept such a large amount, he said, trying for noble. Maybe we could work out an arrangement. A loan? A loan, I said mildly. And I suppose we'd discuss the terms while you live in my house, eat my food, and help yourselves to my hospitality. Well, we are family, Madison said, as if that wrapped everything in a bow. Yes, I agreed. We are family, and that's exactly why what happens next is going to sting. I closed the checkbook with a crisp snap. They both flinched. I realized they'd been holding their breath, poised for the first stroke of my pen. The thing about family, I said, settling back like a queen in her chair, is that it goes both ways. Loyalty, support, love. Those are two-way streets. You don't get to drive on them only when it's convenient. Mom, we know we haven't been perfect, Tyler began. Perfect? I laughed, sharp enough to cut. Perfect would have been a Mother's Day call. Perfect would have been including me in your lives instead of hiding me like a shameful secret. What you did wasn't imperfect. It was deliberate cruelty. Madison leaned forward, mask slipping. Evelyn, we're willing to acknowledge our mistakes. We want to build something better going forward. Build a better relationship, I said, thoughtful. Starting when? The moment you heard about my lottery win. How wonderfully convenient that your thirst for reconciliation coincided with my improved bank balance. Tyler looked down, ashamed. Madison, made of sterner stuff, held my gaze. People change. We've grown. We're not the same people we were 13 years ago. You're right, I said. You're not the same. You're older, you're broker, and you're more desperate. But the core? That's unchanged. I walked back to the window, not for the view, but because I wanted them to sweat a little. Do you want to know what I did with my time these past 13 years? While you were curating your important lives. They said nothing, but I could feel their attention like heat. I learned, I said simply. I took classes. I read. I made new friends. I found out that I'm actually quite capable when I'm not being told I'm a burden. I turned. I also learned about investing, about planning, about protecting assets from people who might try to take advantage. Tyler's face went carefully blank. What do you mean? I mean, I didn't just win the lottery and stuff the money under a mattress, I said. I hired professionals, good ones, people who specialize in protecting wealthy clients from complicated family dynamics. You hired lawyers, Madison said, her voice flat. Among others, I replied. Financial advisors, estate planners, even a private investigator. I smiled at their expressions. You'd be amazed what a motivated person can learn about someone's finances with the right help. You investigated us, Tyler said, voice cracking. I investigated everyone, I said evenly. Friends, distant relatives, charities, vendors. When wealth arrives, you learn quickly that everyone wants something. Most people are honest about it. I tilted my head. You two weren't. What exactly are you saying? Madison asked, all pretense gone now. I'm saying that showing up with suitcases, demanding space in my home and access to my money after 13 years of radio silence was a mistake. I took my time sitting, smoothing my skirt, lifting my coffee, meeting both their eyes with calm. I'm saying that if you think I'm the same woman you discarded, you're about to be extremely disappointed. Silence twanged between us like a tight wire. Tyler looked queasy. Madison looked like she was mapping escape routes. I wasn't done. The grandfather clock in the hall chimed 3 times. We'd been talking for over an hour. Time flies when you're watching a scheme unravel in real time. So, I said, setting down my empty cup, let's discuss what you actually want. Not the reunion, not the concern for my well-being. Let's be honest. Tyler opened his mouth, probably for another polished speech, but I lifted my hand. Before you answer, let me share a few things my investigator uncovered. I slid open the side table drawer and pulled out a manila folder. Madison's eyes locked on it like it might strike. For instance, I said, opening it, you've been living beyond your means for nearly 5 years. The consulting business that's supposedly in a slow period, it hasn't had a legitimate paying client in 8 months. Tyler went white. How could you possibly? The same way I know about the 3 maxed out credit cards, the loan against your car, and the second mortgage you're 2 months behind on, I said, lifting a page, and the money you borrowed from Madison's parents, pitched as business expansion, but used to keep the lights on. You had no right, Madison whispered. No fury, just the hollow sound of someone caught. No right? I let out a genuine laugh. Honey, I had every right the moment you rolled in here making demands. It's called due diligence, something you might have learned if you'd ever run a successful business. Tyler sagged. We're in trouble, okay? We're in real trouble. But you're my mother. That has to count for something. It does, I said. It counts for the reason I'm going to give you one chance. Exactly one, to be honest. Drop the act. Tell me what you need and why. They glanced at each other, the marital telegraph humming. Finally, Tyler straightened. We're going to lose everything, he said quietly. The house, the cars, probably Madison's parents' money too. We owe about $300,000 and there's no way to pay it back. $300,000, I repeated, letting the number hang. That's quite a hole. We made bad investments, Madison added. Tyler's partner embezzled most of the capital and disappeared. By the time we figured it out, it was too late. For the first time since they arrived, they sounded close to honest. It didn't make me sympathetic, but it made me curious. And you thought showing up here with suitcases and demands was the best strategy. We thought, Tyler said slowly, that if we framed it as a family reunion, wanting to spend time with you, it might be easier than admitting we need money. Easier for whom? I asked. He swallowed. For us. At least that was honest. It was almost refreshing. Well, I said, closing the folder. Now we're getting somewhere. 300,000, I murmured again, like smoke rising. Most people take decades to reach that level of debt. We know how it sounds, he murmured. Do you? I asked. Because it sounds like two people who made catastrophic choices and now want someone else to pick up the tab. I steepled my fingers. Tell me about this partner who supposedly embezzled. Daniel Brooks, Madison said quickly. Tyler's college roommate. They started the firm 5 years ago. Daniel Brooks, I repeated, scrolling through a note on my phone. Funny thing about good investigators. They're thorough. I scanned. Daniel didn't embezzle a dime. He discovered his partner was funneling company funds into personal expenses and gambling. He reported it to the authorities and dissolved the partnership to protect himself. The silence in my living room was so complete, I could hear the refrigerator hum. That's not what happened, Tyler protested weakly. Isn't it? I asked. Because according to the police report, yes, there's a police report. You've been under investigation for business fraud for 8 months. The district attorney just hasn't decided whether to press charges. Madison's face went the color of old paper. How do you even... The same way I know you told your parents Tyler has a rare medical condition requiring expensive treatment, I said calmly, and that you borrowed $50,000 from 3 different relatives using 3 different sob stories. I set the phone down. You're not just broke, you're cons. We're not criminals, Tyler said, but even he didn't believe it. Really? What would you call lying about cancer to get money? What would you call siphoning funds? What would you call showing up after 13 years with a performance designed to manipulate me into bankrolling your fraud? For the first time since they arrived, true fear flickered in their eyes. Good. Fear can be honest. We never meant for it to go this far, Madison whispered. But it did, I said. And now you're here, asking me to erase consequences you created. I stood, moved to the window again, and let the afternoon light wash across the countertop. Dust motes danced, peaceful and ordinary, in a moment that was anything but. Here's what's going to happen, I said without turning. I could feel them holding their breath. You're going to pack your suitcases and leave my house. But before you do, we're going to talk about honesty and consequences. Mom, please, Tyler started. I'm not finished. I turned and saw full-on panic at the edges of their eyes. Interesting thing about hiring investigators, you learn all sorts of unexpected details. For example, I learned I wasn't the only family member you cut 13 years ago. Tyler's Adam's apple bobbed. What do you mean? I mean your Aunt Linda, I said mildly. My sister, the one who helped pay for your textbooks and mailed birthday money until you stopped taking her calls. Madison shot him a look that could peel paint. It turns out, I continued, Linda tried repeatedly to reach you after you dumped me. She was worried, wanted to understand. You told her to mind her own business and blocked her. We were establishing boundaries, Madison said defensively. Boundaries? I nodded. Is that what you call it when you maintain contact just long enough to be named in a will, and then disappear again? Tyler's face changed colors like a faulty traffic light. How did I know about Linda's will? I said, answering the question he hadn't quite asked. Easy. She updated it last month. Guess whose name got removed? Apparently she's not a fan of people who abandon their mothers and then circle back when there's money. You turned her against us, Tyler accused. I didn't have to, I said. You did that yourselves. I remain standing now. No need to settle. Linda and I talk every week. We have for 3 years. She's the one who suggested a private investigator when I won, said I should protect myself. You've been planning this, Madison said, flat with realization. Planning what? I asked. To be prepared when my estranged son showed up demanding money? Yes. Linda warned me it would happen. I smiled, and it made them both uncomfortable. She said you'd wait for the news to spread, then show up with a story about family. Tyler slumped deeper into the sofa. We need help. Yes, you do, I agreed. Professional help, therapy, financial counseling, probably legal representation. I picked up the folder again. What you don't need is an enabler willing to throw money at a bonfire. So you're going to let us lose everything? Madison's voice pitched higher. I'm going to let you face the consequences, I said, like adults. I pulled a page free. However, I'm not heartless. This, I held up the printout, is the contact information for a bankruptcy attorney who specializes in messes like yours. He's expensive. He's good. He can help you navigate the legal part and maybe keep you out of prison. You'd pay for a lawyer? Tyler asked, hope sparking. I said he's expensive, I replied. Not that I'd pay for him. I set the page on the coffee table. If you want help, real help, here's my offer. I will loan you enough money to retain this attorney and enroll in a legitimate debt counseling program. Not $300,000. Not enough to prop up your lifestyle. Enough to keep you out of jail and let you start over with a clean slate. How much? Madison asked immediately. $25,000, I said. Half for the lawyer, half for the program. I sat, ready for the part that mattered most. But there are conditions. What conditions? Tyler asked warily. First, therapy, I said. Individual, not couples. You each need to figure out how you became people who con your own families. He started to protest. I held up a finger. Second, full restitution to every person you defrauded. Your relatives, Madison's parents, any clients you overcharged, everyone. That's impossible, Madison said. We don't have that kind of money. Which brings me to condition 3, I said. You get jobs, real jobs, not consulting, not entrepreneurship, not a scheme, employment with pay stubs, and you keep those jobs until every debt is repaid. He stared like I'd sprouted a second head. You're talking about years. I'm talking about the rest of your lives, I said. That's how long it takes to rebuild trust once you've smashed it. And if we don't agree? Madison asked. I smiled, and I know it was the kind of smile that makes small children hide behind their mothers. Then you walk out with nothing, and I make sure every relative and friend who lent you money knows exactly why. I will send each of them a detailed accounting of your schemes. Try me. You wouldn't, Tyler whispered. Don't test me, I said. I've had 13 years to imagine this conversation. The clock chimed 4, 2 hours. and I saw the exact moment they realized their plan had detonated. "We need time to think," Madison said finally. "No," I said. "You need time to choose. Accept my offer and start rebuilding the hard way, or keep chasing shortcuts. But not in my house." Tyler's eyes brimmed. After all these years, after all the damage, he looked like a lost boy. For just a second, my heart pinched. Almost. "There's one more thing," I said as they gathered themselves. "Something you should know before you decide." I went to my desk and took out a sealed envelope. The return address was a law firm in Denver, dated 3 weeks ago, right after the news of my lottery win made the rounds. "It's from an attorney representing someone who's been looking for you both for a while," I said. They blanched. "Who?" Madison whispered. "Daniel Brooks," I said, opening the envelope. "Remember Daniel, the former business partner you accused of embezzlement?" Tyler's hand shook. "What does he want?" "His money back," I said. "The $50,000 you withdrew from the company account before dissolving the partnership. The money he discovered missing after his accountant did a full audit." "That's not," Tyler started, voice barely there. "Isn't it?" I asked. "According to this letter, Daniel has been working with the district attorney to build a case against you. He's been waiting to see whether you'd voluntarily come forward and make restitution." I folded the letter. "He heard about my win and wondered if that might motivate you to do the right thing." "What does that mean?" Madison asked, gripping the sofa arm until her knuckles went white. "It means Daniel is offering the same choice I am," I said. "Make full restitution and accept responsibility, or he proceeds with criminal charges. The only difference is his deadline is tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Tyler croaked. "By 5 p.m., I said. "So you see, my offer isn't just about family or lessons. It's about keeping you out of prison." Silence rolled through the room. I could almost hear the gears grinding as they hunted for an angle that no longer existed. "You planned this," Madison said finally. "You've been in contact with Daniel." "I have," I said. "He called the day after the paper announced my win. He wanted to know if I knew what you'd done and whether I'd help clean up your mess." "And what did you tell him?" she asked. "That it depended on whether my son would take responsibility." I lifted the graduation photo again, felt the old ache, set it down. "Daniel's a decent man. He didn't deserve what you did to him. Neither did Aunt Linda. Neither did Madison's parents. Neither did any of the people you hurt." Tyler was crying now, real tears, quiet and hot. "I never meant for it to get this bad." "But it did," I said gently, "and now you have to decide what kind of man you want to be going forward. You can accept my help and Daniel's mercy, work hard to make it right, and maybe salvage a scrap of integrity. Or you can keep running and lying. Some choice, I know." "It's the only choice that counts," I added softly. "The choice to be honest." The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with coffee and the newspaper waiting. Daniel had given them until 5, but I had a feeling they'd call earlier. People staring down prison rarely sleep well. The phone rang at 8:47 a.m. "Mom," Tyler's voice sounded like it had been sanded raw. "We accept your conditions, all of them." "Both of you?" "Yes. Madison agrees. We want to make this right." I set my coffee down, leaned back, and let myself breathe. "Before I transfer a cent or make any calls, I need you to answer one question honestly." "Okay," he said. "If I hadn't won, if I were still your broke mother in a small apartment, would you have called me? Would you have tried to rebuild anything?" Silence stretched so long I wondered if the call had dropped. Finally he said, "No. Probably not. I was too ashamed, too proud, too scared you wouldn't forgive me." It was the first fully honest thing he'd said since appearing at my door. It hurt, but honesty has a strange way of cauterizing a wound. "Thank you for telling me the truth," I said. "Now I'll tell you something." "What?" "I forgive you." I was surprised at how steady my hands were. "Not because you're sorry now, not because you need help, but because holding on to anger for 13 years was poisoning me more than it ever punished you." He exhaled, a ragged sound. "I understand." "Do you?" I asked quietly. "Because forgiveness isn't trust. Trust is earned, slowly, with consistent behavior over years. It's therapy and hard work and proof, not promises." "I understand," he said again, and this time I believed him. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can just tell when someone finally gets it. Good. I'll call the attorney this morning and Daniel this afternoon. You and Madison need to be in their offices by end of business. And Tyler? Yes? This is your last chance. If you lie again, if you cut corners or hurt anyone else I care about, you're on your own. For good. "I know," he said. After I hung up, I sat for a long time, thinking about second chances and the razor-thin line between forgiveness and enabling. People will say I was too hard. That family should stick together no matter what. But those people haven't spent 13 years asking themselves what they did wrong. They haven't felt the specific ache of being discarded by their own child. They haven't rebuilt a whole self after being told they were nothing. I learned something in those years. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's fear dressed up pretty. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister. "Heard through the grapevine that Tyler showed up. How did it go?" Aunt Linda never lost her knack for timing. I typed back, "He's getting a second chance. Whether he deserves it remains to be seen." She replied, "And how are you?" I looked around my home, my sanctuary, the life I built after losing everything I thought mattered. A life where I set my own boundaries, made my own choices, and never again begged for a chair at a table that should have been mine by right. "I'm doing just fine," I wrote. "Better than fine. I'm free." 2 years later, Tyler would finish paying back every penny he owed. Madison would discover she was actually quite good at managing a small business when she wasn't chasing shortcuts. And I would wake every morning in my own house, living my own life, finally understanding what real wealth means. It isn't numbers on a ticket. It's never again accepting less than I deserve. The money didn't hurt, though. Thanks for listening. If you've ever been through something like this, you're not alone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this.